Hey, what is going on, guys? RvzStealth here, and in today's video, we're going to be taking a look at the best top laner right now in North America, who is Quas, and we're going to be taking a look at the champions he's been playing recently and why he's been having so much success in solo queue with those champions. So we're gonna go over like the certain builds he's going on those champions. We're gonna take a look at like the ability maxing that he's going and just like the certain ways that he plays the champion. So let me know if you guys do like this different type of video, because I haven't done a video like this before, and if you guys do enjoy this, then I could do this for like another role as well, for like the best mid laner in North America. But with that being said, guys, let's get into the video. So the first champion that he plays, or the champion that he's most successful on by far, is Swain. So right now in solo queue, he's got a 79% win rate on Swain, which is insane. And this isn't just with like a few games played, you know, because you can have a good win rate. You can have like a 100% win rate just by playing like 5 games on a champion, but that really doesn't like show your strength with the champion and show if you're actually good at the champion. But Quas, he's got over 70 games played on Swain with a 79% win rate, so that's super crazy. And we're gonna go over like the build that he goes here on Swain and just like why he's such a strong pick right now. I did put Swain in my latest like sleeper OP list because I honestly think that Swain is just a very easy to play champion, and because of that, because he's just like pretty linear, and because that he can deal a load of damage while still being really tanky in team fights, does make him a pretty good pick for solo queue. So the way that Quas builds Swain is actually quite a bit different from what a lot of the other Swains go in solo queue. So one thing to note here is that he never buys Spirit Visage on Swain. He only builds damage on this champion. So I think that when you're playing Swain, or when he's playing Swain, he wants to solo carry. He wants to be the one carrying the game, and therefore he doesn't build any defensive stats. He just tries to get as much damage as possible in order to carry his team. So what Quas does instead of going Spirit Visage is he goes for the Abyssal Scepter. Now this item, it will allow you to deal more damage because the passive on Abyssal Scepter, if you're nearby enemy champions, they're going to take 10% more magic damage. So this is going to help your team out, and if you do have like a few AP champions on your team, then it's going to allow them to deal a little bit more damage as well. The item also provides like some cooldown reduction as well, so overall I think it's a pretty underrated item right now, and he goes that instead of getting a Spirit Visage because he just wants to get as much damage as possible so he can carry. The first 2 items he gets are pretty much the same every game though. He does rush Rod of Ages, and then after that he usually does go Zhonya's, and that is like a really core build on Swain. Getting that power spike of the Rod of Ages and Zhonya's is really key, and once you do get that, once it is like, if you can get that build before like the 20-minute point and you can start team fighting, then you can just solo carry a team fight with Swain super hard. Now after he does finish his Rod of Ages, Zhonya's, and Abyssal Scepter, he usually gets Haunting Guise. Now this is pretty interesting because a lot of players in solo queue, they usually go for a Rylai's after those 3 items, or after 2 items on Swain, but Quas never goes Rylai's on Swain. He goes usually, or he always goes Rod, Zhonya's, usually Abyssal 3rd, and then 4th item is a Haunting Guise most of the time. After the Haunting Guise though, he usually does finish off with a Rabadon's. I rarely see him buying Void Staff, which is pretty interesting because Void Staff is pretty effective if the enemies are stacking magic resist, but he never goes this item on Swain. So I feel like by getting the Liandry's, I guess you are getting that magic penetration, or you are getting the magic pen from like the Haunting Guise and your Sork Boots. So I guess he feels like he doesn't need the extra pen from the Void Staff, and therefore he can get a Liandry's, and the Liandry's item, it will allow him to soak more damage in team fights because it does give you pretty good, or it does give you a pretty good amount of HP. Now the runes that he takes on Swain are actually pretty interesting, and I don't see a lot of other Swain players go these runes, but I can definitely see why he does it. So the interesting part of his rune page is that he takes cooldown per level glyphs, and he also takes health per level seals. So he doesn't take any armor or any magic resist on Swain. For his marks he takes magic pen, and then for the quints he takes this standard ability power. Now the reason to why he goes the cooldown per level glyphs glyphs is because you're not really gonna get a whole lot of CDR in your build with Swain. Rod of Ages doesn't give you any CDR. The Zhonya's and the Abyssal are the only two items that are going to give you CDR. So you're gonna have 35% CDR at level 18, like with your full build on Swain. And if you don't go the CDR runes, then you're not really gonna have a whole lot as him. You're only gonna have like around 20%. So getting those CDR runes is definitely pretty important because it will allow you to just use your ultimate more, and it will allow you to spam out your abilities in team fights. Alright, so moving on to another interesting champion that he's playing recently is actually Shako top with Ignite and Teleport and taking Deathfire Touch as his Keystone Mastery. So I actually tried out this Shako top a few days ago. I really wasn't impressed with it, but it was because I was playing it wrong. So the way he plays this Shako top lane is he goes full AP on Shako. His build looks like this. So he always rushes Proto Belt. After Proto Belt, he either goes for Zhonya's or Lichbane, and it doesn't really, or I can't really see like what he goes after that because a lot of the games they end by the time he gets those three items. So usually his core items though, they're Proto Belt, Zhonya's, and then the Lichbane, which is definitely, it will give you quite a bit of damage on Shako, and it will make your boxes deal a ton of damage. And this is how he plays Shako. He plays Shako for the boxes damage instead of like his auto damage or his E damage. So what he does is he maxes out his W, and if the enemies try to duel him, he puts a box down, and the amount of damage that box does is actually insane, and a lot of people don't expect it. So it just allows him to easily win trades like in the early game. With that Ignite, it does allow you to all in your opponent pretty easily. If they try to jump on you, you put a box down and you win that trade most of the time. When I played Shako top, the way I was playing it wrong is I was maxing out E and then I was maxing out Q second. I wasn't even putting any points into W, so that's I guess why I wasn't doing too well on him. You do want to max out your W first, Q second, and then your E last, or at least that's what Quas does on his Shako top lane. The runes he takes on Shako are also really interesting, like Swain. So he doesn't take any defensive runes, he doesn't take any armor or magic resist, he goes attack speed marks, he goes ability power per level glyphs, and then he goes health per level seals, and then ability power quints. This will just allow him to like deal a lot of damage and win a lot of trades. It does make him pretty squishy though, like in the early game. Without any armor or any magic resist in the laning phase, if you do get ganked, then you are going to die pretty easily, but you do have your Q, which you can use to escape. So I guess that's one of the main reasons to why like he doesn't take any defensive stats, because he is pretty confident that if he does get ganked, he can just use his Q to escape. And then as for the boots on his Shako top lane, he does take the Boots of Lucidity so far, like in every single game that I've seen. So I guess because you're not really going to be getting like a whole lot of CDR from your other items, then taking those Boots of Lucidity is very good. It will allow you to get 40% CDR. Once you do get Proto Belt, Zhonya's, and your Lichbane, as well as your Lucidity boots, that will give you that 40% CDR. So that's another reason to why you don't need those CDR runes with Shako, because you are going to be getting it from your items. And the final champion that we are going to talk about here that is an interesting champion he's playing is the Nasus top lane. So this is how, or I think Quas was the one who came up with this style of Nasus, and he was the one that kind of like invented the Emax Nasus, and you just like shove lane and be super annoying. I'm sure you guys have probably seen like videos on this, or you've seen a video on this, so I'm not really going to go too much into detail on this one, but basically he rushes ZZ Rot Portal, he maxes his E on Nasus, and he just plays Nasus super early game focus. He pokes with his E whenever it's up, he constantly shoves the wave, and he tries to draw pressure top lane. By drawing pressure top lane, it will allow his jungler to gank other lanes really freely, because he's going to be constantly pushed up into the enemy's tower. So the jungler, he's gonna think that like it's a pretty free gank on the Nasus, because Nasus is usually a champion that you want to shut down in the early game, you don't want to let him stack. But if he dies as Nasus, he really doesn't care too much in the laning phase, but because he's playing him early game focused, he's not really as focused on those stacks. He's just focused on like getting that first blood tower, pushing the enemy into their tower, and creating jungle pressure. Now, a few other interesting things to note here about his Nasus is that he does take the Storm Raider Surge Keystone Mastery. A lot of Nasuses are going this now, and it is becoming like the standard keystone on Nasus. The reason why it's pretty strong is because it does allow you to take trades and then just back out of them really easily if it's not going your way, because you can easily proc that Storm Raiders with your E, like with one E down and then with like a Q and an auto, you're probably going to proc it every single time. And also it's very effective for if the enemy jungler does gank you, because if they do try to gank you, you can chunk the enemy top laner down with your EQ, you can wither them, you're going to get that Storm Raiders proc, and you're probably going to be able to get out of that situation, especially if you do have your ultimate up. It's going to be very hard to gank a Nasus at level 6. Now, as for the build here on his Nasus, like I said before, he does rush that ZZ Rot portal a lot of the time. If he is ahead in the early game and he thinks he can kill the enemy top laner, then he will actually rush a Trinity Force. It just does depend on how the lane is going, but the main items, or the items that he gets like really early on, are pretty interesting. So what he does is he always usually goes Corrupting Potion as his starting item, and then on his first back, he grabs 2 Doran's Rings, which allows him to sustain really well in the laning phase, and it will allow him to just poke the enemy down. It will give him some more AP, so his E is going to deal quite a bit of damage, and it will allow him to shove the wave even easier. And then for the runes that he takes on his Nasus, he goes very defensive with his runes. Now the reason to why I think he would go more defensive is because when you're playing Nasus top lane, you want to be able to survive the jungle pressure that the enemy jungler is probably going to put on you. So getting a lot of armor and magic resist in your runes is definitely going to help you out a lot to survive those ganks, because likely the enemy jungler is going to camp you just because you're like a Nasus, and usually if there's a Nasus in the game, then the enemy jungler probably thinks it's going to be a free kill a lot of the time if he is pushing out. So the runes that he runs are attack speed marks, he goes some magic resist per level glyphs, as well as some CDR per level glyphs, and then he goes health per level seals, and he goes armor quints. This just allows you to stay really tanky, and it does allow you to avoid jungler ganks if the enemy jungler is camping you. So that is going to be all for this video, guys. If you did enjoy this type of video, be sure to let me know down in the comments. I would appreciate some feedback, because I don't really know like if you guys would enjoy this type of video. I wanted to try out something different, and I thought this video would be kind of interesting because you are taking a look, or we were taking a look at the best player right now in North America and just seeing what he's successful on. I feel like by taking a look and analyzing like what the best players are playing, it does give you a pretty good idea of what's strong right now and what can be strong if you can play it to its fullest potential. So with that being said, guys, thanks for watching, have an awesome day, and I will see you in my next video.